I'm Giles Cooke, Master of Wine. I am founder, winemaker, general dog's body for Thistledown Wines. So our winemaking philosophy is all about drawing out a sense of place, about being as faithful to the beautiful sites that we work in. Trying to create wines that are more elegant, more balanced, more textural, more kind of food friendly. And I guess from the outset, in trying to provide a sustainable future for Grenache as a variety in Australia, and more particularly in McLaren Vale. The growers and the vineyards that we work with are in the main absolute champions of particularly Grenache, which is the variety that we're most obsessive about. A lot of them have been working with the variety for a long period of time. And the vineyard that we're standing in at the moment, the Smart Vineyard, is probably the greatest example of that. We respect and we value these growers in a way which hasn't happened before and is very much overdue. Are old vines important? Yes, yeah, very important. And anybody that knows me would know that I'm something of a contrarian. The received wisdom when it comes to old vines is that old vines means power and intensity and concentration. I take exactly the opposite approach. As a vine ages and it adapts to the individual vineyard site that it's growing within, it develops its own strategies to ensure that it survives and that it reproduces. And the benefit that has to us is that an old vine will push flavour before sugar, because that ensures that whether it's a kangaroo or it's a rabbit or whatever that comes along and eats the fruit, it will come along and it will eat the fruit of the old vine before it does a young vine that just pushes sugar. The benefit for us is that we can pick earlier, so we get brighter, fresher, healthier fruit that makes more beautiful wines, but we do it with full flavour, and that's not something you can necessarily do with a young vine. Sustainability is a large part of what we do. Thistledown is a Sustainable Wine Australia accredited wine business, but I think everybody's got to be very conscious of our role within sustainability now. It's also increasingly important to our customers around the world, particularly in Northern Europe. The tenders that come out now, if you want to sell wine there, require sustainability accreditation. But it's more than that. There's been an awful lot of focus in Australia, quite rightly, in terms of lowering water usage, bringing in varieties that either ripen at different times, so you spread the vintage timing, or they use less water, or they keep their acid better. It's obviously a bigger subject than that. It has a huge impact in terms of glass weight and things like that, which we've done an awful lot on in the last few years to try and reduce, so that our CO2 emissions are lower than they were before. It's meant a huge amount being recognised this year. I think more than anything, we started this year buying out Thistledown from the parent company where it all started. And I think it's fair to say I was slightly concerned that after a few years where we've had lots of awards and plaudits, this would be the first year where we got absolutely nothing. And it hasn't proved to be the case. We won the Halliday Wine of the Year in the middle of the year, and then the bushing at McLaren Vale, which was an incredible moment for all of us. I think for Paddy and Laura as well. It's lovely to have that recognition after what's been quite a hard slog of a year. We're still outsiders to a degree, and I think winning the bushing actually kind of feels like you've been accepted as part of the community. So I think more than anything else, it's feeling that we've kind of finally arrived. As a Master of Wine, I guess you're spread relatively thinly across a lot of different subjects. So the first visits that I ever did when I got into wine were all in Spain, and I spent a lot of time traveling around Spain. And then I also started working an awful lot in Australia, right across the country in terms of buying and blending and importing. So when it came to developing Thistledown, that love of Grenache that had been fueled by all of my time in Spain and some of the things that I'd learnt from there drew me to McLaren Vale. I think the overall quality and the consistency of the quality of the fruit sources that we've got in McLaren Vale mean that it's by far and away the most important region for quality, global quality Grenache in the whole of the country. And I think I'd be lying if I didn't say that when I first came here, there was an opportunity. One, we could afford it at the time because it was about a quarter of the cost that it is now, and that we could add value to it as well in a way that we couldn't necessarily add value to other things. And in doing all of that, we could achieve what we wanted to do in terms of making wines that were more elegant and more aromatic and more food friendly, but also try and provide a more sustainable future for the growers that we're working with. So what makes McLaren Vale so special, particularly for Grenache, is the age of the vines. So we often talk about Australia as being the new world. And actually, if you spend any time in Australia getting to know the regions right across the country, the age of the geology and the land are so many times older than anything in Western Europe. And because of that, you've got incredible diversity and you've got real complexity of soils. I mean, McLaren Vale has one of the most diverse geologies of any wine region anywhere in the world, with soils that are millions and millions of years older than anything in Western Europe. And then we've got some of the oldest vines. We've got the oldest Grenache, the oldest Shiraz, the oldest Cabernet in the world in South Australia. So you've got age of vines, you've got beautiful microclimates, particularly around Blewett Springs and here where we are in Clarendon. So it's just a really unique place. And I think having that external perspective is sometimes what's required to almost sort of look on an area and what it produces with a whole new light, and being able to see what other people are producing, and trying to convince the people here that actually what they have is something that they need to shout about around the world. And us and a number of this kind of prominent producers of Grenache, I think, are hopefully doing that quite successfully now. So the Thistledown style of winemaking certainly started off being driven by this desire to make something that was more food friendly, more appropriate. And I think that's only become more of a drive as we've grown, as the way the people eat and consume both wine and food has completely changed to something that's a little bit more informal, and it tends to be more about sharing. And so those bigger, heavier styles of wines are not always as appropriate to that. So what started out as us trying to make wines that kind of changed people's perceptions of Australian wine around the world has only become more relevant in terms of how people eat and drink. And if you spend any time in these vineyards, they're beautiful vineyards. They've got an incredible history of site, of people. And we want to convey that as faithfully as possible. And during the process, the evolution of our wines, we've gradually realized that if you work with the right variety from the right place, picked at the right time, then doing less actually enables you to translate that site into bottle much more faithfully. What is my favorite grape variety? Let me think. It's Grenache, strangely enough. There's a real transparency, I think, about Grenache when it is grown the right way in the right place and then made in an empathetic fashion. It conveys its sense of place beautifully. In the style that is emerging out of McLaren Vale now, and in a lot of areas around the world, it's just incredibly versatile. It's really food friendly, and I'm obsessive about food and about cooking as well as about making wine, and I cannot think about making Grenache without salivating over particular dish that I'm thinking about making it. And given what we set out to do initially, which was to make kind of more food-friendly wines that could be sold in great restaurants around the world, making Grenache in this kind of style really fulfills so many of our goals. It's one of the great news stories that people are now realizing that old vine Grenache in particular is one of the really great varieties grown around the world. I've got to talk about what goes well with Grenache, and I mentioned before that a lot of my early travels in wine were in Spain, and I'm slightly obsessive about the foods of Spain, and I actually used to probably spend more time trying to find the best jamon in Spain than I did buying wine. The Grenache and jamon has got to be up there. Very, very simple, just beautiful ingredients right from the start. I think Grenache and any kind of lamb, particularly slow cooked, if it's got kind of North African, Middle Eastern spice running through it, absolute genius, because in a lot of those styles of foods, you've got dried fruit, you've got pomegranate, you've got spice, there's warm spices. A lot of those flavors are the same kind of flavors that you'll find in really good McLaren Vale Grenache. Memorable vintages have been many in a relatively short space of time. We've come quite a long way in quite a short space of time. 2016 was quite memorable. I was seriously ill in 2015, and at some points I wasn't quite sure whether I'd be coming out in 2016. So making it to 2016 was quite memorable. 21 was a memorable vintage, COVID times, and I had to spend quite a lot of time in quarantine hotels to be able to do vintage. But then 21 vintage was such a beautiful vintage when you actually got here, and the wines were both plentiful and really well received. So I guess those are two that stand out for, I guess, very different reasons. Hopefully neither of those things are ever gonna make it memorable again. I think in terms of the best kept secret, I think we're only just beginning to unearth the best sites. The best sites have been around for a long period of time, but it's really only in the last kind of 10 years that the proper detailed work has been done on those sites, whether it's by people that are growing the fruit or people that are now the custodians of those vineyards. And we've moved from that period of time where we were just trying to make something that was delicious and drinkable and people wanted to come back and buy another bottle of, to now working on the finer details of those wines. So they're not only delicious and drinkable in their youth, but they've also got longevity. So I think although we've kind of discovered Grenache in McLaren Vale, we're only really in the kind of the foothills of its evolution, and there's still a long way to go until we reach the summit of what Grenache can actually be in McLaren Vale. Well, McLaren Vale is a real melting pot, but also very welcoming to people outside, even jocks stroke poms like me. I think anybody from an external perspective looks at what's coming out of McLaren Vale now and sees a real momentum and direction of travel, which is really good to be a part of. And I feel like it's my second home. I split my time between the UK and Australia, and most of my family are from the southwest of England originally, many of whom were some of the first settlers in McLaren Vale. And that kind of rolling countryside, proximity to the sea, and yes, it's a bit warmer here normally than it is in Devon and Cornwall, but it doesn't feel so kind of alien or foreign to me. So it's a beautiful place to make wine, and one which hopefully will carry on making wine for a long time.